Well, now, that's word is highly misunderstood. Some people say emptiness is nothing and space is nothing. But what I say, if I do use the word nothing quite a bit, but again, I don't like to talk about nothing. I want to let people see for themselves what nothing is. So if I was forced to speak a little bit about what nothing is, I would say when you recognize your essential being, your essential nature, which is only here and now, that there is no past or future. You see that here and now there is only what is. So the entire world created by your mind, which has a lot to do with time, your past and your future world, which includes all of your spiritual concepts, philosophies, and teachings, your future sadhanas, and all these things. When you see for yourself what's true here and now, you see that those become completely moot. They don't exist at all. There's no truth in them. So I say, in that sense, no thing or nothing means that you are free of all of that, free of time, free of past, free of future, and free of seeking and free philosophy. And another thing I would say about nothing is when you recognize who you are here right now, you see that no word touches this. No word possibly can touch who you are. No philosophy, no poetry touches this who you are. Those things are pointless as far as freedom goes. So what normally we rely or hope for something to bring us to freedom, whether it's a beautiful philosophy or a sadhana, we're relying on something, and it's all in the mind. And so when we recognize who we are, which is no thing, we see that none of those somethings apply whatsoever to freedom. So in that way, in my way of speaking about nothing, that's what I would say nothing is. Well, I sparsely use, if ever, use the word non-duality, because it's also another one of these terms that is very confusing, but I'll just try to give a succinct view of how I see non-duality. The absolute and the form are one. Nirvana and samsara are one, just as ocean and wave are one. There isn't a separate ocean and a separate wave. So I say, if you want to know what the true non-duality is just look. Whatever you see now is the absolute. This is the absolute. There's no absolute separate from this. That is the essence of duality, isn't it? That there's form and that there's the absolute. Two things, form and absolute is something transcendent of form. I say what you're looking at now is the absolute. And when you reconcile with that, everything stops and seeking is finished. And so, some beautiful past teachings have spoken about that. In Zen Buddhism, they say emptiness equals form and form equals emptiness. They don't say there's emptiness and form. They say they're the same. And in Indian religion, they say Shiva Shakti, Shiva being the so-called unmanifest, and Shakti being the manifestation of energy or form. But that's one word, Shiva Shakti. You see, so they're saying it. And then one other person said it in history very well. He said, I and my Father are one. I, this body, this form called Jesus, and God are one. We're not separate. So in my view, that's what non-duality means. It's the end of outward seeking. It's the end of any movement outward. It's recognizing that this moment here and now is the absolute. We have to look, what is the end of suffering, you ask? We have to look at suffering in a couple of different ways. Because one thing is, when someone you love dies, if someone you really love, what if your child dies? In that moment, it causes a lot of pain, doesn't it? That's completely natural. Of course it does. That's not wrong. That's right. That's the normal human body's response to something like that. So is that suffering? Yes, you can call that suffering. Are we going to get to a point where we see something like that and not suffer? Well, I think that's ridiculous myself, Or what if a bus runs over your foot and there's pain? Is that suffering? Well, of course you can call that suffering. Are we going to get to a point where the bus runs over our foot and we laugh in equanimity like the Buddha? This is ridiculous. So that kind of so-called suffering is completely human and natural. The kind of suffering that can be alleviated through the recognition of freedom is mostly the time-based suffering that has to do with psychological. The past suffering, The past suffering, the regrets, the remorses, the guilt, the traumas of our past that replay in our mind. And because we believe firmly in this thing called time and firmly in this thing called the self, which means everything that has ever appeared in my mind is who I am, and that this past is real. So then when those things appear, they create suffering now. And when in actuality, that event or the cause is not actual now, is it? It's not. So this kind of suffering, and I don't speak cavalierly because some people have a lot of really deep trauma. So it's not a simple fix or something like that. You know, one has to recognize their essential nature, which is free of time, here and now. And then if one is very devoted to freedom, more and more that kind of time-based suffering is alleviated. And I've seen it time and time again with the people I work with. And then there's the future-based suffering, which has to do with fear and regret, and I call seeking suffering also. There's something wrong with me now, and I'm going to get it in the future, so I fear and worry and anticipate. This is suffering as well, isn't it? Or worrying about death or what's going to happen. But there is no future. So if you want to be honest, and I say my work, freedom, the work of freedom is really, it's very simple. It's just about being honest. What actually is? Is there a past and a future? You will look for yourself and see. And this is a big part of the work I do. Look for yourself and see. Is there a past? Well, show it to me. There isn't. There's only this. So then all the stories of the past don't exist, do they? So then we can get over the belief that I am the amalgamation of those samskaras, which is the mental impressions. That's who I am, the amalgamation of those samskaras. That's my world. That's when they say the end of the world is the end of your personal world that ends, and what's left is simply what is. And in resting more and more, just being devoted more and more to freedom, which is simply what is, you will see a lot of that kind of psychological time-based suffering is alleviated. Well, the end of seeking is the end of thinking that there's some problem, obviously, isn't it? Why do we seek? We seek because we think we lack something. If we feel we lack something, anything, if we lack money, we seek money. If we feel we lack acclamation, we seek fame. You see, if we feel we lack some kind of success, we lack success. This is seeking in the world, which I did plenty of, which we all do. And then we turn onto the spiritual path, and the same exact seeking mechanism continues. Now there's still a problem. The problem is I'm not free. I'm not pure enough. I'm not enlightened enough. So we seek to fix this problem that we think we have, which is that we're lacking something. And we're lacking those things. So we seek, 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 seek. Well, when you come to recognize your essential nature as wholeness and freedom, well, surprise, surprise, you come to know you don't lack anything. You lack nothing. You're already complete and whole. And when you lack nothing, when you recognize really deeply, I don't like the word deeply, so please take that with a grain of salt. It's not deep. But when you really recognize fully that you lack nothing, seeking ends by itself. Now, some great famous gurus that I like, and nothing wrong with them, but they say, give up the search, stop seeking. And I say that's not possible. You can't through volition give up the search. You give up the search when you get fed up with seeking, and if you're lucky, get to hear a very, very simple message. And if you hear that very, very simple message and you're ready to be humble and willing enough to be that simple, then you recognize that you're free, and then seeking is finished. Oh, that's a beautiful word. I love that word. Satchitananda. It's actually 3 words. Well, I'll just give you the short answer is it's you. You are Satchitananda. And it's a huge part of my work. The work that I do is basically that. And in Sanskrit, those words sat means existence or being. I like the word being, but it's the same, existence, being. So you recognize that you are. You can't deny it. No one, except maybe some philosophers, will deny that they exist. It's ridiculous. You exist. And so you see that you exist. So first of all, you exist. That's sat. And chit means consciousness or knowing. I like the word knowing. Chit means you know that you exist. So sat chit means knowing that you exist. That's all it is. I exist, and I know consciously right now that I am. I exist. That's Sat Chit. And what Sat Chit reveals is that you're free of everything. You're free of time. You're free of your stories. And that revelation, in that revelation, what is revealed is that you are peace itself, Ananda. Most people translate the word Ananda as bliss, but that word can get confusing. It elicits a blissful state, and most people that are seekers think they're going to attain this blissful feeling all the time. Nice, very beautiful, nice, nice. Nothing wrong with that, and I like it as much as anyone else. But that's not really what Ananda means. Ananda means the end of all outward movement and seeking. It means you've come to rest. So Sat means existence, Chit means knowing itself as peace. Existence or being, knowing itself as peace, or I knowing myself as peace. That's Satchitananda.